The civil fraud trial where he owed 500 billion, right? Because he lied about the value of his properties and said they were worth a lot more than they are. Well, he owed that money. He last week said to the court, and we covered this a little bit, and I covered it some more. Said he didn't have it. His lawyer said it was an impossibility to get the money for the bond. So the way that works is he owes whatever it is, 460 or 70 billion or million, sorry. So Letitia James gave him basically 30 days, which is fairly standard. So he's got 30 days to put up a bond. So he puts up a bond with the court, which is either cash, or he can put up his properties, or he can go to an insurance company or a surety company or broker, or somebody can lend him the money, whatever. But the money's then sitting with the court, right, essentially. So that way, they can't seize his assets or his property while he's pending for appeal. Once the appeal is either rejected or the appeals, he just loses the appeal, then they can go after his property if that bond is sitting there. But he couldn't get the money for the bond, the $500 million, right? Nearly $500 million. So they went and begged the court, and it looked like last minute that Letitia James Monday was going to be having to seize properties, which I'm sure she wasn't thrilled about, but because it's tedious work, and it costs a lot of money to do. But what ended up happening was the appeals court came back and said, all right, Trump, here's the deal. We'll let you pay us $175 million on the bond to prevent us from seizing your assets. Doesn't change the judgment. He still owes the 460 or 70, whatever it is, with interest racking up, right? But all it does is say, look, we're not going to go after your assets until after the appeal if you give us $175 million, and we'll give you 10 days from Monday to do it. So they gave him a little bit of an extension, and they lowered the amount that he had to put in. Well, we're going to go into this. The Democrats, not the Democrats, I mean, people on the left, on the, sort of cable news media kind of people, they were all pissed off and freaking out about this like it was a big deal. I didn't really see it coming, but I wasn't really shocked when it happened. And then the right wing was like taking victory laps like he won something big here. So we're going to look at both sides, and then we're going to look at
so it's funny to consider that a victory, because just because you didn't have all of your stuff seized is not a victory make. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but it doesn't change the judgment. He didn't win anything. He just got a little bit more time and a little bit of a break. And it is unfair because, like, if it were you or me and we owed $500 to the court for a parking violation, right, or something like that, they probably, if we begged them, they might give us some extra time and stuff. But, a lot of people, they just go seize their shit on little things like that. So, I mean, I get where it's a little unfair that he got that, but at the same time, it's like, we'll go into it a little bit more, but let's look at both sides, because I think it was just funny how everybody reacted. I didn't think it was a big deal, but everybody kind of overreacted to this.
An unexpected relief for Donald Trump as he faces a ticking clock on his $454 million civil fraud judgment. A New York appeals court today deciding it will accept that much smaller bond, $175 million, agreeing to block collection if he puts it up within 10 days. So while he now has more time, Trump will still be forced to answer the question, does he or doesn't he have the money? This is what he said just moments ago.
Greatly respect the decision of the appellate division, and we will abide by that. We'll put up cash or bond very quickly, securities, cash or bond, whatever it is. We'll put it up very quickly, and we'll win the case. I have a lot of cash. You know I do, because you looked at my statements. I mean, you've been examining my statements for a long time, and I have much more than that in cash. But I would also like...
You've been examining my statements. Yeah, the ones you lied on? That we determined you lied on? So, we'll do a friendly bet. I would bet $20 he can't even get the $175 million in 10 days.
I'm gonna bet the same. Yeah. I feel like that's got my vote too. I don't think he'll be able to get it.
We'll see if he can. He got the E. Jean Carroll bond, the $91 million, but he had to put up like $50 or $60 million in cash. So he had to put up most of it in cash, and then they had some, I'm sure they have the ability to seize whatever properties he has. I'm sure he put up a shit ton of collateral. So, I mean, he barely got that at the last minute. So, what are the odds he can get almost twice that in 10 days? Especially after 30 companies have just turned him down, according to him at least.
Yeah, that seems a little rough.
Yeah, we'll see what
honestly.
he does. But anyway, here's the reaction. So this is Fox News, and they're making fun of the sort of the Democratic reaction on MSNBC, and rightfully so. I think it was kind of stupid. I hate to agree with Fox News, but I mean, it was a little over the top. But then their response is equally over the top on the other side, and it's fucking ridiculous. So this is just look, if you're a Fox watcher or viewer and you're into this shit, I'm sure you liked it. But if you're like a rational sort of regular sort of person like me and Lacey, especially like leftists like us, we watch it, we're like, this is fucking hilarious. This is good television. These people who are so stupid. I mean, they get a chance to dig at the other side, and then they just shoot themselves in the foot. It's hilarious to me.
Democrats and the media, who were once thrilled about the prospect of Trump surrendering his assets, now fuming over the decreased bond.
This is so infuriating, I don't even know what to do. You know, now he's getting his own private system of justice. This is an absolute travesty.
But certainly, this is one heck of a break for, yet again, Teflon Don.
The playbook is different for former President Trump.
He's pretty much gotten everything he's wanted. For what reason? No one else in the country would have that kind of luck.
And my favorite, Bonnie Willis, is back.
So they have a point there. That's a little over the top. Okay, so they reduced the bond amount a little bit. He's still got to appeal it. What are the odds that he wins the appeal?
I do see, though, as kind of a matter of principle, because most likely I wouldn't get that sort of a deal. You know,
most of us wouldn't.
And the person down the street would not get that type of deal. So I do understand people being upset at sort of, you know, the appearance of like the hypocrisy of the thing. However, probably also I wouldn't be having to put up that sort of sum of money as well.
Right.
So me not getting a 10-day extension, you know, I also wouldn't probably be in a scenario that was valued at that sum of money either. So.
Right. Well, and you know, I don't disagree that it's a little over the top, just in appearance wise. But I think if you think about it, we'll get to it in a second. I think if you think about it from the appeals court's perspective, it makes a lot of sense. If you just take a minute and think about it, I think that's the one thing I don't think. I agree with you. It looks bad politically, but the court shouldn't be worried about what it looks like politically. And that's just my personal opinion. But here's the Fox 5. Now they've just done that. We're making fun of the Democrats for overreacting. And now they're going to jump in and they're going to not overreact.
There's lots to shoot at here. Which, take your pick, whichever one you want.
Thank you. The $175 million bond, which certainly is appropriate because there was absolutely no connection between the $475 million and I think it's $500 million at this point with the interest that Engoron just pulled out of the sky and said, I'm going to hit Donald Trump for that. And, you know, they're just disappointed because they wanted to call him broke Don. And he's not broke Don anymore. He's going to make that $175 million bond. Now, it is conditioned, of course, upon his perfecting.
Right. You want to bet, Janine? we're ready to bet.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
She's upset because that was trending was everybody was. You ever see the Godfather and the Godfather Don Corleone, right? So everybody was calling Trump Don Corleone because he's broke.
Oh my god.
Anyway, so. This just corrects me. I love Judy Perro's like, she used to be a judge, so you'd think she'd give some sort of legal analysis. Yeah, that's why they call her Judge Janine. But I don't know. She's been drinking too much. I swear to God, she's trashed half the time she's on set. So yeah, Engoron did not pull these numbers out of his ass. Okay, so she should know this. It's called discouragement, right? So when there's not a specific victim, right, and you've been found liable for something, the courts can sit there and go, we're going to take all your ill-gotten gains and give it back to the people. Because you basically ripped off the state of New York by doing all this, which is true, which is what they found. So to do that, though, discouragement, we got to figure out how much ill-gotten gains was it. And that's what we're going to discourage. That's what we're going to take back, right? So Engoron didn't pull it out of his ass. I'm going to pull up this article here. It was just a simple one from the Washington Post. How Justice Engoron's numbers add up for Trump's penalty in the New York fraud trial. So it was 363.89 million, right? 354.8 was for Trump. But that was for 3 different, basically, frauds that he committed. Okay? 9 million of that was for his sons and a couple other executives in his firm, right? So, so let's see. Where did I get? So this is the 354. Okay. So Engoron found that Trump benefited from ill-gotten gains in 3 major categories, including the sale of the government lease for the former Trump International Hotel at the historic post office in Washington, sale of his rights to operate the Ferry Point Golf Course in New York City, and interest savings that Trump obtained by portraying himself as less of a financial risk than he was. So for the old post office, Engoron figured Trump's profits for the 2021 sale was about 126.8 million. So that's where that first number comes from. And then they go down and he adds up the others. So he owes 168 million to cover the savings he obtained and reduced interest rates by committing fraud. And then he owes another 60 million for profits for the sale. So the numbers are there. I mean, and Janine should know this. I mean, he wrote a 92-page summary. She's in the news. She should have read it. Fuck, I read it. And this isn't even our full-time gig. We just do this for part-time for fun.
Right.
But, and it's funny. I mean, if you read the whole 92-page thing, it's funny. It was a quick read. But, yeah, I mean, it's not like he pulled it out of his ass. He lied. He got caught. So she's going to go into this more. She's just crazy to me. But she just...
his appeal by September. That means he's got to have all his appellate work in the appellate division, first department, which rendered this decision reducing the bond. But I want to just, Dana, because I looked this up, when Sam Bankman-Fried, who apparently conned something like $1 million or 1 million victims, his bond was $250 million. Bernie Madoff had 40,000 victims. His bond was $10 million. Donald Trump, no victims, $500 million. I mean...
So, here's the difference. Those were criminal trials. Not civil. So the bond was to keep them out of jail, not to seize their assets. It's a very different bond. She should know that. She was comparing apples to oranges. So the whole thing is bullshit. Plus, it's not really a win.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
She's being very misleading, with that statement.
Well, that's what she gets
which
paid.
Is frustrating because she knows.
Yeah, she should know. She gets paid to bullshit. But that's the thing that I think is so funny about the whole deal is it's not really a win for him. It didn't reduce the judgment, right? All it did was say, okay, you can put in a little less for the bond. We won't seize your assets till the appeal. Now, we can watch the rest of the 5 go fucking nuts over this and say stupid shit, but I think Judge Janine summed it up for us really nicely, so we can move on to the next one. Because we can watch Jessica Tarlov, and she's got a good response. But here's the Bulwark, which is more of a right-wing kind of news organization, but they're more like moderate kind of like Reagan kind of conservatives, right? The old conservatives. And here's George Conway, Kellyanne Conway's ex-husband, who was a federal lawyer, who's tried cases in the Supreme Court. I mean, sharp guy. I don't agree with his politics at all, but he's a smart guy. And here's him, and they ask him about it, and he sums this up pretty freaking quick and makes it really easy.
The election interference / hush money case isn't the only big news out of New York. Just today, this is breaking. In the New York business fraud case, the Court of Appeals just agreed to accept a smaller bond of $175 million instead of the $454 million they were originally going to do. And that original bond was due today, but now Trump has an additional 10 days to obtain it. So, I don't know, to me, $175 million still sounds like a lot of money, but this does seem like a win for Trump.
Yeah, it's a small win for Trump, and I don't think it's a surprising win. In fact, I put out on X or Twitter a few days ago that I thought I wouldn't be surprised if the appellate division, that's the name of this particular appeals court, the appellate division, First Department, cut back on the bond requirement to some extent. And that's what they did. They cut it down to 175 and gave him a few extra days to see if he could come up with that money, since he couldn't come up with the 464. But it's still a substantial sum of money. I'm not surprised that they did that. I read through the papers that both sides filed. Both sides wrote very good papers, and I thought the Trump people wrote very good papers. I mean, their point was that this is in a circumstance where you have damages where somebody's suffered some out-of-pocket loss. These are damages for, this is disgorgement for unjust profits. And it's not money that the state of New York needs to give to victims or anything like that. So why do they need the full bond? And that's not a crazy argument, and it could be. There are lots of different arguments here on the merits and on damages, and it could very easily be that the judgment gets cut back to some extent. I don't think it'll be thrown out altogether, but if it's cut back, it could be cut back by $100 million or $200 million and still be just a massive defeat for Donald Trump. And so
yeah, I think that's basically the simple nuts and bolts of it. Is the appellate division basically sat down and said, well, look, he doesn't have the whatever 480 million or 70 million, whatever it is right now, right? So we could either start seizing his assets, or we could reduce it and give him a chance to put some money up. Now, I think if you're looking at it from a court's perspective, yeah, there aren't any direct victims that we have to give money to, that we need to make whole right now. So there's really no time crunch for us to get this money. So not a big deal. I also think the other thing is they also pretty much know or can guess that he probably doesn't have a lot of that. And that a lot of his assets, even if he took loans or whatever against him, he couldn't do that, because he could have done that if he had enough equity. He could have taken out a mortgage or something like that, or an equity loan. But he doesn't have any of that. He doesn't have enough of that. Otherwise, he'd have done it. Right? Unless he's bullshitting, which could be, but the other thing about it is this. Okay, well, he's not going to do it, so it looks like we're going to seize properties, right? So if we're going to seize properties, okay, that means Letitia James has got to hire attorneys. They've got to go get liens. They've got to get court orders. They got to freeze his bank accounts, which means we got to involve the sheriffs and all that stuff. And then even his New York properties, all combined, if they seized all those and sold them and got rid of them, still wouldn't cover it. So they'd have to go seize stuff out of state. They'd probably have to seize whatever stuff he's got in Europe, right? So now you're talking about international law, federal law. Now we're getting the FBI involved. Now we're getting the international courts involved. Now we're getting other countries. This is now a really expensive, tedious process. And this happened in California, where they seized a casino and they couldn't sell it for several years. So they weren't going to fire everybody. So what ended up happening was the state of California owned a casino and didn't do very well with it, because they shouldn't be in the business of running a casino. So
they probably weren't really trying to be in the business of running a casino.
As a state, they shouldn't be doing that. And it's the thing. You seize his golf course. What if you can't sell it right away? Then you're running it, and then you're kind of doing him a favor, because all the profits you're making from it while you seized it go towards his judgment. So you're basically seized it, but you're running it and paying down his judgment for him. Right? Even though he lost his course. But so there's not a lot of upside here to seizing his it would take years, and it would cost millions and millions of dollars. And you'd have to hire a ton of lawyers and police and all that shit. It would just be a nightmare. The court will do it if that's what it takes, but that's what it'll take. Well, If I'm the appeals court, I go, wait a second, though. What if we lowered it to like 175 and see what he does? Maybe he gives us 175. Now we've got 175 million in cash. So that's 175 million we don't have to seize. Right?
Right.
So that's 40% of the work right there. Why don't we give him the opportunity? Right? Plus, if you're the appellate division, you probably have a good idea of, are we even going to hear this case, the appeal, or are we just going to deny it? Or if we do hear the appeal, what are we likely to do? Are we likely to... We're not going to reverse the judgment. Probably not. Like Conway said, they're not going to reverse the judgment. That would be insane. They might lower the total amount a little bit. But, 10 or 20% or whatever it is. But that's about the most they could do. So I can see where the appellate court's like, if we can get some more hands on some of the cash now, let's just do that. For the sake of justice.
Yeah. Just a move of trying to simplify things for themselves, probably.
Right, and they're nice enough. They're throwing the defendant a bone, so he can't bitch and moan that he was treated unfairly, which he's going to do anyway. But they could say, "Well, look."
Well, anyway, yeah.
They're going to say,
It's
"Look,
it's his favorite crying wolf activity,
Right, but they're going to show you we gave you break after break after break, dude, and you still didn't do it. So I mean, it doesn't hurt them. And in fact, if he does pay it, it does help them. Because then when they either deny the appeal or he goes to appeal and he loses, he's still going to have to pony up the rest of the cash, but they got $175 million right away in cash. Which is better for the state of New York than having to spend years chasing it down, right? So,
right.
I don't see the issue. I
don't think most people were thinking about how it might benefit, the court or the state to do something like that. I think that, many people were just looking at it literally from the Trump perspective.
Right. More from the political perspective. What does it look like politically? What does it look like, does it look like we're cutting him a break? And they kind of are, but at the same time, they're kind of doing themselves a favor from the way I see it. So,
right.
And I think they're doing Letitia James a favor because that's a lot of fucking work to chase down that amount of money from a guy who's got 512 properties that probably aren't worth half or a quarter of what he says they are. He thinks Mar-a-Lago is worth $1.5 billion and it's worth about 25 million. Right? I mean, really? Your shitty, tacky golf club in fucking Florida is worth more than the Burj Khalifa? I don't fucking think so. But...